Good evening. I would like to welcome you to our Beachside Chat. Now go get them, our facilitated interactive workshop on cannabis marketing technology. Tonight, we want to hear from you and we want you to engage with us and our fantastic SMEs as we work through exercises to improve your business. This Beachside Chat is sponsored by the City of Los Angeles's Department of Cannabis Regulation. I am Dr. Delara Uscoop of the Los Angeles Metropolitan Churches. Again, welcome to this Beachside Chat, sponsored by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation, Business, Licensing, and Compliance, BLC Assistance Program. BLC programming is designed to assist social equity applicants and licensees in the City of Los Angeles with obtaining a commercial cannabis license and operating a successful cannabis business. Our Beachside Chat is designed to be a dialogue between the LAM team and our subject matter experts to bring you cutting-edge information to support your business. This evening, not only will we be dialoguing with our subject matter experts, but we will be going through a series of exercises. So we want you to pull out a piece of paper, a pen, your phone, whatever works for you, because we want to hear from you as we work through these exercises, again, to improve your business. At this time, I'm delighted to introduce our co-moderator, Mr. Brad Rowe.
Well, thank you, Dr. Uscoop. Very nice to hear your voice again this evening, and of course, to have such a wonderful group of subject matter experts with us tonight. My name is Brad Rowe. I've been working with LA Metro Churches. We've been building curriculum, content development, and digital events like this one for social equity licensees, applicants, and job seekers. I teach cannabis policy at UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. I have spent the last decade working with cities and states on cannabis licensing, taxation, regulation, and compliance. Now, speaking of compliance, before we get started, let's take a moment to review some of the housekeeping rules. Please note this webinar is being recorded and it can be viewed after the editing process on the learning management system for social equity verified individuals. You will be muted with cameras off for the duration of the webinar. This means that your camera and audio functions will not be available to you during the session. However, you will be able to see and hear all the panelists. And there's an open chat box where you can interact with one another for networking or comment on the information. But please use caution when sharing public information in a public forum. Just keep your questions focused on tonight's topics, but please ask questions about tonight's subject matter in the Q&A box. There's going to be a very interactive evening. We're gathering and responding to your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll have a Q&A session where you'll be able to get some more responses to your questions in the last 15 minutes of tonight's event. So if you use the Q&A box for questions, everyone will be able to see the questions when they're answered. And then finally, please note, tonight's content was not created by the Department of Cannabis Regulation or the City of Los Angeles and is for informational purposes only. The information is subject to change and does not replace or supersede the Los Angeles Municipal Code nor constitute legal advice. If you have specific questions outside of tonight's topic, please call 213-978-0738. I'm going to say it again, 213-978-0738 during business hours, Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to speak to a DCR representative. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Dr. D.
Thank you, Brad. Now I'm pleased to introduce our evening's subject matter experts. Panelists, please pardon our abbreviation of everyone's bios. First, I would like to welcome back Savvy Henderson, CEO of Savvy Business Accelerator. Savvy Henderson is seasoned with over 2 decades of experience strategizing innovative marketing and digital experiences for startups to large corporations. She has worked with renowned brands such as BET, GM, Pantene, Clairol, Olay, and more, and with you tonight. Henderson has partnered with teams to win over $4 million in government contracts. Savvy Business Accelerator, digital marketing agency, is B2B, specializing in content marketing, digital media, and content development. Her clients range from celebrities, musicians, and athletes to tech startups, small businesses, and nonprofits. The agency has extensive experience with overall marketing strategy, email marketing, content production, brand development, and business development. Welcome back, Savvy.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. And it is our pleasure to also welcome back Ishka Hillman, CEO of the Canna Boss Babes. Ishka Hillman formed the Canna Boss Babes as an entrepreneurial support platform to support women in the space who previously felt unheard, unsupported, and unsure how to compete with men when so many resources appear to come from being a part of the quote unquote boys club. Ishka is an experienced leader who has a history of creating healthy work environments where employees are cultivated to be their best and are confident in their value. With nearly 20 years of corporate human resources, sales, customer service, operations, business administration, and marketing for large and small businesses, she now uses her expertise to help brands stand out with compelling and representative storytelling and build sustainably by creating workflows and systems that work for the capacity of the business. Welcome back, Ishka.
Thank you so much, Delara. This is always fun to be able to come and help share some of what I've learned.
Well, welcome to Savvy and to Ishka. We've also got a newcomer this evening, Bethany Moore. She's an expert cannabis communications consultant. She has been a cannabis advocate for 20 years and recently served as Director of Communications at the National Cannabis Industry Association, where she was responsible for member-facing content and communications, including educational blogs, newsletter, video projects, and NCI's weekly podcast. Bethany has extensive experience in nonprofit activism work, including drug policy reform and church-state separation issues. In her early career, Bethany spent over 3 years working for the National Foreign Language Center at the University of Maryland, as well as Radio Free Asia. From 2006 to 2008, she spent 2 years as a campaign manager for the First Freedom First campaign at Americans United for Separation of Church and State, while also volunteering with the Maryland chapter of Americans for Safe Access. It's a medical marijuana patient advocacy group. From 2011 to 2013, Bethany served as a multimedia project manager for an international finance and investment firm. She has a strong background in project management and strategic planning, as well as communications and public relations. She enjoys writing, publishing, and performing poetry. Bethany is originally from the Washington, D.C. area and relocated to Denver in 2014. Welcome, Bethany Moore.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thanks for being with us. Dr. D, do you want to get us started?
Yes, let's get us started. I want to hear from everyone this evening, all of our attendees. Put something in the chat, and what we want you to put in the chat is your social media platform handles. So let's start the engagement already. List who you are by sharing your social media handle or your website. 1, 2, 3. I don't see anything in the chat yet. What's going on? I'm giving you all 3 more seconds to get that chat populated. And while you all are doing that, please, let's go to our first slide and exercise number 1. We're going to assess your capacity and existing marketing avenues. So this is all about self-assessment and figuring out existing marketing avenues. Okay, I see our SMEs are popping their information into the chat. I want to hear from our participants this evening. Please pop your information to the chat. And I know it's going to take a second to populate it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Yes, please select everyone. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's go to that next slide. And as we work through this exercise, I'm going to invite in Ishka to help me go through it. Ishka.
I am here. Yes, let's do it.
All right. So Ishka, is there anything the folks need to know about assessing their business? And we're going to walk through each question by question. We want, to get feedback from the audience about these questions. We actually want you to think yes or no. And we want you to think aloud to yourself while, we're all on this call together and in this interactive facilitated workshop. But is there anything you want to tell us about assessing one's business that you want to drop?
I mean, I think, one of the things, there's definitely a few things once we've gone through some of these questions that I'll bring up as we go through. But I think before we even get into it, the number one thing is we don't know as much as we think we know of what our customer wants. And so one of the things that I see a lot and you know, in our industry and in many others is that when you have an idea and you have a new product or business, you have an idea of who your target demographic is, but sometimes if you're not able to communicate to them, they're not it. Or if that's not who's really interested in your product, that's not really going to be it. So we can go through these exercises, and I'm going to really encourage people and challenge people that you maybe will have a few things to learn, and it'll be less about what you think you know, and that market research part's a real big part of it. So yeah.
And I do see someone in the chat. I love it. I love it. Send us your I see some hashtags. Send us your handles as well, or your website if you have it. If you're still developing it, you know, we understand. But if you already have a social media presence or a web page, please send us those handles and those sites. So question number 1, we want you to assess your business profile. Is it up to date? And is it comprehensive with keywords included whenever possible? So have that sheet of paper and mark yes or no. Give yourself a point if you marked yes. All right. So is your business information up to date? Are your bios, your bio, your staff's bio pages, your team's bio pages, et cetera, other co-founders, et cetera, are those pages up to date? Give yourself a point. Next, assess your avatars across platforms and profiles and header images. And you want to make sure that they all have consistent theme elements of your brand, your product, or your business. So think about your profiles, think about your avatars across different web pages, social media sites, et cetera, and maybe even your Twitter, and think about your header image and think about your profile image. Do those images match? Is there some consistency in terms of that theme? Yes, no.
And do they really represent your brand? Like, is it one item? Is it a catalog of things? Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I hope I'm hearing silently. Do folks have 2 points so far? So for every yes in this, I want you to give yourself 2 points, 1 point. All right. Stay back on that next slide. Let's pop back to that previous slide. Thank you so much. All right. Now we want you to assess how many people follow your brand, your product, or your business on each platform. So if you have 1 follower across any of these platforms, social media platforms, business pages, brand pages, product pages, if you have 1 follower, give yourself a point. So again, I want you all to start. And again, some of these questions we're kind of asking, and we recognize you may not be able to go through all of the questions right now as we're asking, you to kind of do this inventory, but this content is going to be available for you, and we're going to prepare a document that asks you all these questions. So if you don't have an opportunity to go across your platforms right now, we recognize that's okay, and you'll have you'll have the opportunity to be able to do that at a later time. All right, but if you have 1 person following you or your brand or your business on any platform, give yourself 1 point. All right. Now, how often do you publish new content? Do you publish new content weekly? Do you publish new content monthly, quarterly, yearly? So how often are you refreshing those pages? How often are you refreshing your FAQ page on your website? So think through how often you're publishing new content. So for this one, if you have any kind of content, we want you to give yourself 1 point. Does anyone have 4 points so far? Let us know in the chat. All right. Our next question is, if you're publishing content, what kind of content do you publish? Is it informational and educational? Is it lifestyle oriented? And we're going to get into that question a little bit more as we advance through these exercises tonight. So I'll give everyone another bonus. If you're having any kind of content on any of these platforms, whether they be social media platforms or a website, we want you to give yourself a point. Next, do you share the content of other businesses or other brands? So do you find yourself cross promoting, being a member of the community, liking other brands, sharing their content? If you're doing those things, give yourself another point. And Ishka, I would love to hear a little bit about the network and the community aspect and why some folks might think, oh, me sharing someone else's brand or business may be counterintuitive. And so I would love to hear a little bit from you, Ishka, about why that is not counterintuitive and why that is a good thing for businesses here to do.
I mean, one, you are leveraging another brand's audience. That's the most direct, but also, I believe as an entrepreneur as well, like abundance mindset means there's more than enough for all. And that when you can show up in the community and show support for other businesses and brands and really celebrate them, that energy takes you a lot further with your customers as well. And so, I'm all about collaboration. That's, you'll never hear me be in competition with anyone, but I do believe that that is the fastest, most genuine way to win a genuine, loyal fan base.
Fantastic. Collaboration, not competition, especially in our social equity community.
Yeah.
Next, how engaged are people with your brand, your product, your business? Are they liking your posts? Are they commenting on your posts? Are they sharing your posts, etc.? If one person has liked, commented, or shared a reel, a post, etc., over the course of however many years you've been in operation, give yourself 1 point. And finally, we want you to ask the same questions of your key competitors. So we're going to go to that next slide. And assess your competitors. So as you're assessing yourself, and again, some of these exercises we're going to have to, we'll let digest and let you go through the worksheet that we have accompanying this Beachside Chat. But we want you to think about, am I doing these things? And then those, even though, we're thinking about the ecosystem and we're thinking collaboratively, those who might be in more competitive proximity with you, are they doing these things? Are you seeing them updating their content? Are you seeing thematic elements across their brands that are consistent? Are they publishing new content? Are they sharing content of other brands and businesses, etc.?
And what's their engagement? Because followers don't matter if their engagement is nothing. Don't be intimidated by that. I think that's a really big, important one, is sometimes we can be intimidated by really, really glossy marketing and then the number of followers. But if you go and you look at the individual posts and you'll see there's like 8 likes and maybe 1 comment, then that 32,000 followers doesn't really count for much if their audience isn't able to go. So just don't be intimidated,
Ishka, anything else you want to leave us with as we move from exercise 1 to our second exercise? This is just designed to get folks to think about their capacity, their existing marketing avenues.
I mean, I think that, we all have different passions within our business and what drove us to our business. Some of us really love the numbers. Some of us here love the marketing and the communications aspect. Other people love manufacturing and the product or whatever it is. I think marketing is a really important key. And while many businesses are focused on sales, and that's you need the sales to keep the business running, that these two things really go hand in hand. And so if you want to be able to answer these questions and be able to communicate these answers to your team that's going to go and communicate your business to the world. So that's all.
Fantastic. So count the number of points that you all have. If you have 4 or more, you are doing fantastic in terms of your business, in terms of business marketing, and in terms of using technology in these ways. And so give yourself a pat on the back, and hopefully you'll find other exercises as we move through this evening where you can do more activities, again, to continue to build that content, engage with your customer base, and then expand that customer base. If you have under 4, you are on your way as well. And there are some things, hopefully, that you've learned in exercise one that you can take with you, or you can continue to improve and do this exercise again in about a month or 2 months and see that you have made some definitive changes in how you are working through social media and using your website. So hopefully you'll have some takeaways from this evening. All right, I'll send it over to Brad for our second exercise.
All right. Thanks, Dr. D. And thank you, Ishka. Some really helpful advice and comments in there. Bethany, I want to switch over to you for a little bit here. Can we work through, let's pivot to short, medium, and long range technology marketing goals, and sort of creating target audiences and thinking about that. So do you want to just kick us off a little bit? I mean, you've got such broad experience with these things, and obviously your post with the national organization in the industry. What is your constituency doing, and how do you work with clients to think about goals and target audiences?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. My most recent experience has been in the realm of communicating advocacy and communicating mostly to direct operators about the work that I have done with the National Cannabis Industry Association to change the laws that would create more favorable business conditions. But in the meantime, we do have challenging business conditions to work with. So communicating to business owners is one aspect of it all, but communicating to customers is also another realm, with particularly the challenges that we're seeing with laws and regulations and company policies surrounding how we can reach our customers. Social media, obviously, we're here to talk about that. That's typically been a great way to reach customers. But there are restrictions about talking about this product because it is still federally illegal. So these are just larger issues to consider when we're thinking about how we are talking about our business and our product to the mainstream public. I think we're definitely going to get into some topics later through this that can help us further dissect how to do that and how to divide that up and how to think about that and what kinds of buckets to start thinking about where we're putting our minds when we're thinking about communicating our business out to the public.
Yeah, that's a really great kickoff on this topic. And of course, we want to engage you to our audience members who are with us tonight. Let's start thinking about this. What are your short, medium, and long-term marketing goals, your cannabis technology marketing goals? What does your audience look like? And Bethany, if I can continue, I just sort of want to leverage what Ishka and Dr. D were talking about before. They're talking about engagement and about it has a little more to do with the engagement than just followers. How do you increase those numbers by X percentage per month? What should people be looking as a return on investment on their effort? And what do you want to shoot for? And what's realistic for a small business?
I mean, great questions. I think there's a lot to think about there, and there's a lot of moving parts. In some way, and especially from my experience, we're talking about content. We're talking about people who are hungry for knowledge, people who are interested in using cannabis products. They want to know what products are going to actually help them feel better. So there's actually a lot of great research out there and a lot of great content out there about the various products and effects and this, that, the other. And this is what people are looking for. So I really prefer the words storytelling and education over sales and marketing. And I really think content is king. And the more that you develop a relationship with your audience where not only do you have a product available for them, but you can give them knowledge in addition to that so that they can make a good decision about the products they're buying. So I really would love to talk more about that as we continue on through this. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good point. I think for our audience members tonight, well, I think one of the great takeaways is what is your story? Why are you doing this? You know, every time we meet someone who has a cannabis business or is in this manufacturing or doing retail or whatever part of it they're in, it always grabs me when they start with a story. Why? What influenced them? What was the personal impact that maybe someone in their family had or their own personal interest? And sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I just got into the business because I was interested and, you know, really enjoyed it. And now this is my passion. But I think that's the idea. How do we take that passion and harness it? And what is the direction that these companies that they want to go in? I mean, we're trying to increase our sales. I don't want to use any dirty words here, but we're trying to market to increase sales and increase our bottom line. How do we get there with these tech tools and how does your constituency with NCIA what are they having success with that you've seen?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Again, like knowledge and teaching and educating. Again, my work primarily was professionals educating each other on how to run their businesses better, faster, stronger, more compliantly, with less stress and so on, as it is a very stressful industry to work in with all the constraints that come along with federal illegal situations here. So ultimately, I do think education of our consumers and potential consumers really comes into play here, and thinking about that there are demographics that have not previously consumed cannabis before that are now interested because the science is starting to be there. We're a little slow here in the US with that official federal research, of course, but there's plenty of great science out there that we can now educate people on cannabinoids and terpene profiles. And we can show them a little bit more of, you know, hey, we crunched the numbers. Here's what we can actually share with you about, here's what you're looking for in a product. So again, customer facing, there's a lot of opportunities there about communicating how the product impacts your lifestyle. I hope that answered your question. Let me know if I missed something.
Yeah, that's great. And it is. It's really exciting that the science is starting to get there and that we're getting to a place where you can actually share some things about the therapeutics. Dr. D and I were just at a conference at UC Davis about a month ago, and it was sort of a pinch me moment where we were in a room with I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 other researchers that weren't necessarily there talking about research about the harms of cannabis. People were talking about medicine. People were talking about economics. People were talking about a bunch of different topics, and it was all due to sort of this new direction that we're headed in states like California, where there is some money going towards research. Just want to finish out on this piece. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of holidays, and we can include 420 in that, the culture of cannabis? You know, are those really big days? I mean, I know in other retail areas we say, oh my gosh, you know, you're going to make your year in December. What are those big days during the year for the cannabis industry?
Oh, sure. 420 is absolutely an important one to mention, and that is very much more going to directly impact your customer facing business operators, your dispensaries immediately, but also back along the supply chain, the manufacturers will also be gearing up a couple of months, maybe even several months in advance to make sure they have enough supply for that cultural holiday. And you'll have to look at trends from previous years in order to understand, hey, is this still a holiday people care about in this state? You know, here in Denver, Colorado, for example, it's still 420 is still a big deal, but the numbers are dwindling just a little bit because legalization has happened so many years ago. But in newer states, you're going to see maybe more excitement. You're going to see more people coming out and showing their support of being part of cannabis culture, whatever that means to them. Now, on that point, there's a lot of people that enjoy cannabis. So there's lots of holidays like mothers and fathers. So we're talking about our parents who are actually a generation that are embracing cannabis more and more. We're talking about different demographics that we don't normally associate with cannabis culture coming out and being consumers. So we can still reach out to those individuals through these various holidays. Here in Denver, for example, if it's a snow day, I've seen certain operators say, hey, snow day sale, come in and you'll get XYZ deal. And those are through the text message opt-in. Again, we'll talk about restrictions on advertising through this at some point, but for customers who have opted into text messages from a particular operator, retailer, you'll get a text saying, hey, it's a snow day. Great day to get 10% off XYZ product. So there's all kinds of holiday opportunities to tap into. And then moving into that, like we're trying to celebrate also, and that's what that's a culture of this plant. So any opportunity to talk about being in a good mood or being inspired or opportunities to feel well or healthier, I think is also an opportunity to reach out to a mood that your potential customers would be interested in interacting with. People have feelings. Social media is all about the feels and all about the inspiration and all about the, reflecting back either what we're seeking or what we're already feeling. So tapping into mood and the desire to feel better and feel well is also an opportunity. Again, like when you are doing educational topics as well, like maybe you would like to do a deep dive. If maybe you're not a dispensary owner, but you're a cultivator and you want to tout how your cultivation methods are particularly sustainable. So you can tap into those people that really care about the environment and sustainability and a low carbon footprint by talking about how your practices as a business owner are meeting those goals. So honestly, the potential demographics out there is like up to your imagination, and really look at your business practices and see what they reflect. And then again, I think you were alluding to this earlier. What is your story? I think everyone loves a good, like, who are the owners of this restaurant or dispensary or, boutique shop on the corner? Wow, they have a history. Or some people really appeal to personal story. And it comes down to that storytelling feeling of people wanting to relate to other people. So they will feel more comfortable or feel a sense of familiarity is what it comes down to, the more they know you as a business owner.
Yeah, that really,
pause there.
Yeah, no, that really connects you with the business and really makes you want to, right. It makes you feel like one with them. And there was something I want to pick up on that you mentioned. I have a feeling there were some dads out there maybe who, would have preferred something besides a tie or some barbecuing implements this last weekend. So I want to call out the audience here. What's your favorite holiday? When do you guys enjoy cannabis? When do you enjoy selling it? How do you connect with your customers? What's the story? Please put that in the Q&A, put it into the comments, wherever you guys can share that information. We'd love to see that. And please, share it with the other people who are here. Remember, anything that you put in the Q&A box, everyone else can see. So but please let us know what is your big cannabis holiday during the year. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. D to get us on to the next topic with Savvy.
Thanks, Brad. All right, we're going to go to our next exercise, which is develop your customer profile. And Savvy, we're so excited to have you talk a little bit more about the customer profile. So let's go to our next slide. So we want to figure out who is the customer and which products and services does this particular customer use. Now, keep in mind, you may have multiple customer profiles, and you should, and we expect that you would have multiple customer profiles. And as you're thinking about this customer profile, we want you to think about the demographics. Where does this person work? Or what type of career does this person have? What industry? Where are they located? What is this customer's gender? What is this customer's race, income, budget, other areas? And then what are the benefits to this particular customer? Is there a preferred mode of consumption? And you want to think about the benefits that the customer receives by using your product or service. And how does your product or service provide value to that customer? Think about how your product or service, again, adds value, and then describe it. So we'll have this again as a call out box for you to put that information in. And the best way to answer this question is to ask your customer base. So if you are already in operation, we want you to ask, how do you get value by using our products? What works for you? What do you like? What keeps you coming back? Ask these questions, right? And then compile these answers that you get from multiple customers. And we want you to be able to fill in that summary. So if you're writing on a sheet of scrap paper, if you're writing it in your phone, we want you to populate these areas. If you're also writing in the chat, the Q&A box, we really do want to hear from you. So how does this customer benefit from the product? And again, we just discussed what some of those benefits may look like. Bethany was talking about some of the therapeutic benefits. There might be other benefits in terms of the customer may enjoy the experience. Tell us what it is about why that customer keeps coming back to your particular business. And then next, you want to think about your pain points. So list all the pain points that you can solve. So we want you to not only think about the pain points your customer has. Is the customer is very busy? Let's say the customer works 12-hour shifts, so they have a very limited amount of time. So the customer really, that's a pain point for that customer. This customer does not have a lot of time. At the same time, maybe your operation solves that problem for that customer. You have very convenient hours, you have extended hours, you are open over the weekend. So again, you want to think about the individual customer, the benefits, but then think about what that customer's pain points include. And then also think about how you solve those pain points for that particular customer. And you'll want to focus on these pain points in your customer profile. So what's the problem and how am I offering a solution? Savvy, what do you think about the customer profiles? How many profiles should folks put together? Should they have 20? Should they have 30? What are the other important considerations in developing this and kind of advance this exercise for us?
Okay, what I like to do with the customer profiles is we typically do three different customer profiles. You may still appeal to more than 3 types of customers, but we start with 3. And what we like to do now is when you have those 3, you're gonna separate them by those demographics, so they may have some things in common, but there may be other things that they don't have in common. Like one thing they can have in common could be the area of town, which is local to where your location is. That can be something in common. Maybe you have a customer that's only 5 miles away, maybe you have one that's 25 miles away, and maybe you have one that's just 2 miles away or 1 mile away. That may be something that they have similar in their buyer profiles, but their career, their industry, their gender, and their income could all be different. And the way that you build out those profiles is when we do our customer profiles, we actually give them names. So that is personal to us, because then we can build stories on top of that type of customer. If we name one Mary, and Mary is a doctor and she lives 1 mile away, and her income is 6 figures or more, but Mary has a condition that, that she's dealing with, that she needs to relax. So Mary is one type of customer. She has a great income, and she's local, but her real issue is she's doing it for wellness. There may be another one that is recreational. So your customer profiles can be different, but for those, since you have 3 customer profiles, and there are people who don't necessarily fit in it, we like to think about community. So you can still build a community base that is not directly stringent on just those particular 3. But the people that fall in your community will have more in common than just 1 or 2 things. It's something that any of them could fall into. And so we always think about building, you can build your own community, and you're going to have a loyal base because of that community aspect. And a way to do that is the way that you tell the stories about how you answer those pain points. You can build storytelling around those benefits and around those particular customer profiles. So it's really not limited to the 3, which is why we encourage you to think about community as well, building your own community. But 3 customer profiles is a great start. And just think about who do I want to benefit from my products? So when you're thinking about those pain points, you're going to go directly into, this will benefit this type of person. This other benefit will benefit this type of person, because sometimes everyone doesn't get the same type of benefit, but multiple people can get different benefits from those different pain points.
Thank you for that, Savvy. That was fantastic. Again, so the key in this development of the customer profile is to do research and to speak to your customers. Savvy, talk a little bit about that research process. What should our social equity applicants and licensees be doing in this process of trying to better understand the customers that are already using their business, or that are already using the products and services at that particular business? Or for those who are it's still in the phase of developing their business, what would you suggest to help develop this customer profile? And as if I'm just thinking, you just said so much great stuff in your response, and just kind of that detail you added in. I'm also wondering, what would you recommend in terms of market analysis and finding out more about the customer? Do you recommend that folks who are already in operation, that they're kind of doing this systematically? So for 1 week, it's I'm going to figure out how my customers are. Hopefully folks have already done some of this work preemptively, but as they're in operation and are optimizing and tailoring and improving and building their business, continue to build and expand their business, how methodical should this process be for someone who is not yet in operation? I know we've heard the feedback of going out to different business sites and having conversations with different customers, looking at being in community and doing those kind of interviews with folks informally. But what would you suggest about the research process and how to develop this, both for those in operation, but also those who are working their way to become fully in operation?
So for the established customer base, I definitely would implement a feedback system that is continuous. So because everybody won't give you feedback, but if you always have the feedback process you already have a system for it to receive it, then you're more likely to get feedback periodically. So if you build it now, if you don't already have it, but you want feedback after every time, but everybody won't, right? So it's just like when you call the cable company and they say, after this call, would you mind staying on the line for a survey? After every purchase, you can have, I don't know if you do receipts necessarily, they're just going to depend, but that could be a QR code at your location. Oh, we'd love to hear your feedback, and they give they can take a screenshot of your QR code that leads them to a survey. You can incentivize it with special deals or a VIP program for giving that feedback. But you want to try to get that feedback I would, like I said, I would suggest it being systematically integrated where it's all the time and not, you don't want to wait and try to get it, because when you're trying to get people to do something and you need the information right now, you might not get it. So you might not get it in the amount of time that you need it. So if it's a continuous, then you'll always be able to improve your process along the way. You'll always be able to get that. It's just like Yelp, and it could be leave us a Yelp review, and you can go on Yelp reviews. Sometimes people leave you Yelp reviews and you're not on Yelp, but they can put you on Yelp, and then you can go. So please check Yelp and make sure and see if you're there, because your business could be on there if somebody commented on it. It could be a Facebook review in the little comments. It could be comments under your Instagram, on your Instagram posts, also review those. Or maybe it's a response to an email newsletter, or even responses to your blog posts. We call that social listening, where it's on the social media, where you're listening to your customers, because sometimes they have, oh, the shipping is too slow, or well, maybe shipping might not work here, but in other instances, or delivery, because I know in LA you can get it delivered. So it could be a delivery time is slow, and it is slow. The delivery time is very slow. But anyways, so that's social listening, where you hear and see comments on social media platforms or review sites like Yelp. For the non-established, you're just starting up, a way to see what these customers want is to go where they are. I always first suggest to go where they are in groups online. There's multiple different websites that have the groups. Facebook has groups. And then you have things like Mighty Networks has groups, and Discord, like Read It has groups. There's different groups of people on different platforms where you can go and gather information, but that is still a form of social listening. So another way to research and find out what type of customer is, I like to use answers.com to see what people are searching for, and you put in whatever your topic is. So that could be, when you do it like that, I would go for either the benefits or the pain points related to your product and search it that way, versus your particular brand in general. You want to go generalized. You want to go either the benefit or it could be either even mode of consumption. You can check on answers.com, and on there it'll tell you everything that people look for, and that'll give you a better, and it's like a big web, and it gives you, you can ding in and get closer and see what's related to that. So it's how to get rid of back pain or whatever you're searching, and it'll have another drop down and things that people search. So that'll give you an idea of what people are looking for, so that you can know what with pain points and what benefits to offer. And then if you can put that along with your the group which you found in the social listening from the groups and events and things of that nature, then I feel like you will be able to get a better idea of who's looking for what and where.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that, social listening and using the tools that we already have at our disposal, social media, and then going where the customers are going. Absolutely. Fantastic. Love that. Bethany, Ishka, any thoughts here on developing the customer profile? Anything else that you all want to add to what Savvy has already elaborated on?
I mean, she covered as far as listening to the feedback. I think that's the most important thing, is to really, don't fight the feedback. I see a lot of operators try to be like, well, that's not true. Well, then they just didn't get it. But if they didn't get it, they didn't get it. So yeah, don't fight with the feedback. Just embrace it and find a better way.
Absolutely echo all that. One other thing that had come to mind when we're looking at customer demographics that I've noticed is, honestly, athleticism and hobbies and recreation are also something that customers are pairing their cannabis experience with. I am not an athlete or a gym rat by any means, But I do know many people that swear by, using cannabis before a workout, or it enhances whatever's going on with their hobbies that they're experiencing. So tapping into different groups of people that have activities that apparently pair well with cannabis. And again, you'll find that through getting to know your customers. Also, if you've already started operating, really that's an opportunity for your bud tenders to, I always have a bud tender ask me, what are you getting into tonight? What are you doing this weekend? They're asking me what I'm into and what my hobbies are without me even knowing that they're asking me what my customer demographic profile is. So I think that's an opportunity there that can just happen through not only social listening, as she mentioned before, but also on site listening through your customers, and then taking that information and going to social media with that tone in mind. That's all I have to add there.
Well, very good. I'd love to hop in here and see if we can get into what some of those tools are. And just wondering what your thoughts are, and we can kind of go around the horn. And again, to our audience, would love to hear what you all are doing as far as social media, as far as tools that you're using. I mean, we've got things like Hootsuite, and we've got Brand Watch, and you've got all these different tools where you can manage your channels from one location. You can publish and sort of have a full overview of what you're doing. You can schedule. Obviously there's a learning curve, right? If you're going to get on a new platform, you got to figure out how to work it and how to do all those things. But from our subject matter experts here, what do you guys recommend? And I'm not endorsing any products here. I was just naming a couple of the tools that are a little more prevalent and out there. What do you guys use? What do you recommend? Or maybe just sort of what are some tools that are useful for the small, not necessarily the mom and pop shop, but for smaller businesses that want to have an impact and maybe don't have an entirely specialized SEO, social media person working on staff?
I mean, I think for graphics, it's Canva. I think everyone in the world would agree to that. Yeah. Plus, they do great things with their business for the world. So, yay, support them. And from there, I really think it's going to be tech that you can handle. I think that that's one of the most important things. Sometimes as new starting off business owners, we want to invest in the best of everything. But sometimes the best is not always the most intuitive. And so you can burn yourself out. I briefly mentioned earlier, like, we have the things that we're good at in our lanes, right? And so if this is an area that is going to be very new to you and going to be somewhat exhausting energetically because you're like really trying hard, then make sure that you're using software and tools, and also services, other people, I like any of the women here or any of the other services that, I know the DCR has a lot of wonderful resources. But being able to find people who can really execute your vision. Budget's not always as big an issue as you think. I think sometimes we put mental blocks in our way of, well, we can't do that until, but sometimes you're actually keeping your business from getting to that until part by not investing in making it easier for you now. So Canva, definitely for graphics. I think Plan or Later are both really great scheduling tools. There are some scheduling features in Canva. I haven't really tested them out. Maybe one of the other ladies can attest to those, but yeah, those would be the ones that I'd start off with. And Wix is great for websites simply because there's so much automation already built in. So if you're someone who wants to be able to get out your emails, and I definitely recommend that in our industry because that's often the only safer way to market to your customers, anything that you can automate and really kind of set and forget. So your time, your energy, your focus is on the parts of the business that require your expertise. delegate to the deck.
Yeah, that's hard. And when we all have to wear multiple hats when we're running a business. One of the things that I sort of wanted to pivot, and then of course, if any of you guys want to jump in and add comments to what Ishka just said, it just gets back to your story, it gets back to the engagement, and it gets back to telling your story. So when you do have those, if you're starting with 10 engaged followers who are commenting on your posts and that kind of thing, really find out who they are, find out what drives them, get in there and also demonstrate that your professionalism, the way that you talk about your products, the way you talk about your business, and help build their confidence, because they're really going to be your best ambassadors. If you've got 10 people that have chosen to follow you, those are going to be your best ambassadors. So how do you, Savvy, anyone want to jump in on sort of identifying your, I don't know, are they going to be your taste makers for your product, or what do you call those people, and how do you treat them?
Well, you definitely could build a relationship with them and call them tastemakers. They will be tastemakers. Or you can call them early ambassadors, they could be nano influencers if they have, 1,000 to 10,000 followers on their own pages. And that is a way to leverage and build a community, because now you have access to their community. So collaborating over competition, that's a great way to expand your own network, is by collaborating with the people who are already engaging with you. I think one of the most important things about the engagement is to also, because sometimes we can get a comment and like a like is not high, like it doesn't have a lot of weight. But if they like and then they comment, it's very important to comment on their comment, right? It's very important to reply, because then that increases your reach as well, like the algorithm, even though that thing changes very rapidly. But it does, all of them have that in common. If a person comments, and it has to be at least 4 words and not emojis, unfortunately, then, and you comment on their comment, then more likely than not, there are going to be more people who see your posts. It's going to go out further. And one thing about earlier, you asked about the increased engagement. The average engagement for a profile is about 1%. So if you can get anything over 1%, if you can increase it over that 1%, you're doing just that much better. But I want you guys to keep this in mind. The more followers you have, and we're talking about like over 10,000, right? Or up to like 100,000. Like when people get their engagement goes down. Their engagement goes down. So you actually having a smaller community, you're gonna get more engagement. So aim for 5. Aim for 5%. 5% or more is great. Like as a reference point, D'Amelio, the girl on TikTok, she has a very good engagement rate to have so many followers. It's like 17%, which is crazy. She has millions of followers. That's like Oprah. Like that's Oprah engagement. You see what I'm saying? That's like an Oprah effect. So 5% is good. 2% is good, an increase from 1%. So I just wanted to go back to that to tell you about the engagement is important. So they engage with them. And like Brad mentioned, it would be great to, cultivate a relationship and see who that customer is. You see what I'm saying? So that you can build a partnership depending on, you're going to go and look at their profile and see if they're in alignment with your brand. And if they are, look at that. They came to you and that was half the battle. Now you're just going to build onto it.
Now, are there trolls in the world of cannabis businesses? You got to deal with some of that weirdness, or is that not a factor? Can you guys tell me a little bit about that?
Ignore the haters. Just, there's always going to be that personality, just that person on the internet who has nothing nice to say. And, much like when you're in a tournament in the long game and they drop your 2 highest and your 2 lowest scores, just think of it that way. Like, that if like when you get the horrible feedback, if it's not something that's actually something you can take action on to improve in your business, which be open and honest about that with yourself, of course. But some people are just spewing negativity, and that's just a fact of life. And just like drop the lower two, and then you're gonna have the people that love it so much too, and like don't let that get to your head too much. So again, much like if you're in a tournament, drop the two lowest and drop the two highest, and focus on that median bell curve of your main customer base.
All right, so little Teflon helps. Let it roll off, and then
I
also
gotta add to that, Brad.
don't let
I'm
your head get too big. What's that?
I
Go
have to
ahead.
just add to that. It is really important in this industry in particular because we have so many limitations on social media, and we see a lot of other companies and businesses get away with things, and then we think that we're safe, and then we do things. But when you do have trolls and haters online, it really only takes for them to report your page. So it is really important to make sure that you know what the rules are, that you play within the rules and guidelines. So that way, if that does happen and your page gets reported, you still have a leg to stand on when you go to the platform and ask for your page to come back. And I did learn that the hard way.
That is great advice. I remember hearing a story about Abraham Lincoln. He would write nastygrams to people, and then he would put them in the top drawer of his dresser and leave them there. So maybe do that. Draft your emails or whatever you're going to do, and just don't send them. Okay. Well, Delara, do you guys want to get sort of moving into a little bit more on the licensees and the applicants? And we were talking. There's this concept of sustainability that we wanted to get to eventually, and I know we're headed down the back end of the track of what we were going to do. Do you want to pick up there, or is there something else you want to cover right now, Dr. D?
Yes, if we can just go through just formally this exercise about setting up replies. And I know, Ishka, you were touching on some of this, so I would love to hear a little bit more about that in terms of the customer experience and how automated replies facilitate that. And then we did a quick exercise where we looked up some words on a particular search engine. I'm not going to say which one. And we looked at the predictions that were coming up in that search. And one of the points of feedback that were given by our SMEs was to ensure the questions that are coming up in the search are answered by the FAQs on your webpage. So I wanted to quickly, if we can show the next slide, show that on the next slide. All right, we'll get to it. Yes. And these are just some of the questions that come up. What to know about cannabis, cultivation, CBD gummies, CBD oil, potbelly pigs also comes up in the search, pot edibles, weed and sleep, pot lights, and it goes on, so on and so forth. And though we refer to our retail locations as retailers, we know that folks may use the language of dispensary. So that's why we search dispensary, what to know about dispensary, working at a dispensary, what do I need to know before going to a dispensary? So use these predictive tools from Google and other search engines, Bing, etc., to determine the direction that FAQ page should go in, and the FAQs should be answering your frequently asked questions. So this is a way to do some research. I wanted to make sure that folks had that piece. We have a question in the chat that I think prior to going to sustainability, and we can go to our next slide. And Ishka, I still do want to hear what you have to say about the customer experience and the automated responses. So I would love to hear Ishka. And then we have a question in the chat from our very own Dr. B, who asks, can you speak about technology predator companies?
That's a good question. So, I mean, as far as automation and being able to really set, your communication, I love doing that. That's a part of like what Savvy was talking about, really honing in on who your customer is, right? And being able to know how they want to be spoken to. And so being able to set up, whether it is the chat on your website, whether it is the tone of the copy for your socials, and what set hashtags you have, and what, it's really kind of standardizing what that experience is going to be in order to be able to create consistency for your customers. And so, there's a lot of tools to be able to use for that when you set up for planning, but it is a really important aspect to think through what that customer experience is going to be. And then you can start creating, assuming like, oh, this is going to lead to that question, or let me just, based off of also your research and what everyone's asking, as Bethany was talking about earlier, right? You can use that information to predict what they'll ask and then just answer in advance. So you in that way, in that sense, are able to then direct their experience more than just having them create their own. And so I think that's usually going to end up communicating overall a better experience for the customer.
All right. And then what about this other question about predators, technology companies that are predators?
Who wants to take that? I mean, there are a lot of companies out there. I think it's important to know what to look for. There's definitely things like if you receive an email that doesn't seem right, check and see where it actually comes from, not just the mask of the name that's on it, but open it up and take a look at it. Don't click on anything. Is that what you mean, Dr. Brown? I do want to clarify. And then same thing with like text messages and things. I never open those things. I think that's a really important thing, is just, when you have a business, especially, don't use the same password everywhere. And don't click on anything that you're not expecting. If you receive a message from the bank or you receive a message from the gas company, just call them directly. Don't click on what you were sent.
And thank you so much, Ishka. We have an entire series dedicated for you, the social equity community, on cybersecurity. So if you have any questions that are related to cybersecurity, we have a series of Beachside Chats, referral lists, and other documents, and a webinar such as this one, an interactive facilitated workshop to think about how cyber secure are you in your business. I want to expand Dr. Brown's question a bit. How do social equity applicants and licensees evaluate these different tech companies that are in this space of marketing, and then also other vendors? So we know that folks can overcharge. Everyone thinks that cannabis entrepreneurs are flush with cash, they're making millions, so they want to charge thousands. So what are some things that our applicants and licensees can kind of look at? And then tell us some of the red flags, especially in the space of canna marketing technology. What are some of the red flags that they should be aware of and should avoid in evaluating other vendors?
I have one red flag to add through my experience. Often you could get an email of someone offering to sell a customer list that they have gathered through this, that, or the other conference. This is it's a long-standing issue in many industries of people who are scraping lists, which may or may not be good value contact lists, and they'll offer to sell it to you for XYZ, but it's not the actual conference company that's selling you this list. It's some third party organization who's claiming to have scraped that list. I would steer clear of those. Again, to Ishka's point, like check the email address. Is it actually coming from that company's domain email address? Oftentimes it's not. That's something that's come up for me over the past decade. That is a recurring issue, is people attempting to sell you lists through email. So just be wary of that. Those are often not high value lists.
Something else, another flag I've seen along with those lists is they will email you and we can get you 100,000 followers. That's a red flag. No one can, they can sell you 100,000 followers that will not be your audience, that may be ghost accounts. Sometimes they'll say they're real people. They are real people. They are mining camps of people, and none of them are your customers. They cannot contribute to your business or your engagement or anything. They're just going to be followers. Followers is a vanity metric, and you don't really need it. You need the engagement, and it's better to come from people who are real, that you have garnered organically, either through people coming in and they follow your Instagram with a QR code on your counter, or they found you online by searching or coming across a reel, because that's most likely where they will find you organically online. Another one is something that I always recommend when you're trying to find a vendor is when you have a meeting with the vendor, if they do not give you any value added on the call before actually selling you on anything, then I would not do business with them. You're gonna always, from a vendor who is passionate about their business and actually want to help you, they're going to give you a value add before even selling any type of deal. They're not gonna give you everything, but they are gonna give you something that can help you whether or not you do business with them. So that's like my code of, they're gonna give you value whether or not you work with them. They're not going to do everything, just going to give you something that you can take and use.
Yeah, I don't think we can help it. Right. One more that you actually, Savvy, just made me think about is events. Being really mindful where you spend your money on events. There's a lot of different events here, especially in LA. Not all of them are going to be full of your target demographic just because it's a big event. I've seen a lot of smaller microdosing brands end up going to things like the Olympics, and that's not your demographic. Everyone there wants to get too high, not a little. So really being mindful of, where your marketing budget's being spent when you go to these events, because it can be overwhelming. And I know you want to get in front of people, but same thing as like a lot of followers is not always going to equal your ideal market. Not all these events are going to be the right ones for you. And honestly, what I've found more success in, and my clients have found more success in, are the more intimate brands where you do get a little more one-on-one time and people really get to understand why they should care about your product. So.
Following up on that, I'm really interested, are there other social media influencers or people that you might want to avoid as far as someone who might tarnish your reputation, or is it kind of like whoever wants to follow you and whoever you follow doesn't matter? Or does it? I mean, where are there things to avoid or landmines out there that people might want to stay away from?
It matters. It matters because if you choose them to be a representative of your brand, then their voice represents your brand. Yeah. So, you want to find people that are going to align with your values and your messaging. So again, if they have a bunch of followers, like, I'm not here to judge anybody on what they want to do and how you want to design your brand. Everybody's got their own look, and that's totally okay. I don't normally work with the girls in the bikinis, but I believe women are beautiful in whatever we wear. So I think that it's really important to align with people that are going to represent your brand well and represent the values, and that are going to create content that you will happily share. And that you're going to feel good about. That's who you should really have represent your brand. Don't just go for the followers. It says something too. It says something too.
Yeah, thanks. And Bethany, I saw you kind of about to say something earlier as well. What are your thoughts on where to go and what to stay away from as far as who you associate with?
Oh, yeah. For me, that's a loaded question, having seen a lot happen in the industry over the last decade. So I'll have to bite my tongue with particular specifics, but somebody may look like a shiny diamond on the surface with a lot of followers, and they may have all the right photographs, but I think it's worth your while to maybe ask around before making a commitment, especially with bigger time influencers. There are folks that have been around for a long time that are not widely respected, at least in the cannabis industry. Customers, however, may not know about some of this inside baseball. So this is a tough question for me to answer as well. But ultimately a brand, and brands will have to work with other companies, ancillary companies that are in the industry and do know the inside baseball. So it's important to do a little bit of investigative research on who this person is, who actually respects them. Is there any dirty laundry? Unfortunately, I hate to talk about this because it's not the ideal reality, but it's true that not everybody in cannabis has their heart in the right place and is conducting themselves in the most ideal way that would represent the industry, or even from a B2B level. And you do need to care about that as a business owner. It's not just about your customer's perception. It's about other businesses that you may need to work with. It could be the payroll company or the marketing company or your legal representation. There are companies in the industry that know all this. And, hey, if you happen to work with some of these people that have been around for a longer time, like those are the people to ask, like, hey, what do you know about XYZ? I'm thinking about engaging with them on social media. What do I need to know? And you'll find out a lot from those veteran heavy hitters. If you are working with anyone that's been in the industry for 5, 6, 7, 8 years or longer, we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot of people come and go, but there are some people that are still around that you may not want to associate with. So it's important to figure out who your trusted network is and ask them what they think.
All right, awesome. Well, that's just good advice for life. So let's jump into this exercise number 5, and again, want to engage our audience. Let's talk about some of the things that licensees and applicants can implement in the next week, month, quarter, and so forth. What can we do? Again, if you guys have got your notebooks out or your phones out and you're writing something down in your notes list, let's really let's make this one hit home. We've got a little bit of time left. As some people say, what are you going to do differently on Monday? So what can we do next week? What can we do this next month and next quarter moving forward? Go ahead, whoever wants to start. Ishka looks like she's ready to go. No. All right, who wants to jump in? What can we do on Monday?
Okay, I will. I would say think about a social media post where you're speaking to one particular customer persona and you're not trying to reach every single one of them. Some advice I got from an author several years ago was to not try to speak to everyone all at once. You do have these niche audiences, speak to them. They will hear you more loudly. They will hear you more clearly. So think of one of those personas, those customer demographic profiles that we talked about earlier, and just think of one post you can make that would speak to them. And then think about the others later, but just one. Start with just one of them.
A little bit of that be yourself. Savvy, what do you got?
Yes.
What do you think?
So is this for the day or for the week?
What can you do? We just got something to do on Monday. How about next week?
Okay, for next week, thinking about the automation aspect, what I would do if you don't have a Facebook or Instagram page, go set that up. Just grab the handle if you're not ready. Just at least grab the handle. But You can set up auto replies directly through Facebook for Facebook and Instagram at one time through their Meta Business. And you can set up an auto, you can put the question. So if someone sends you a message, they say, I have a question, you can have a response to, I have, it'll say, thank you for reaching out. We love to answer your question. So you can set up auto replies directly through Facebook's Meta Business Suite. It's not just Facebook. You have to go to business.facebook.com and you can set up auto replies for your and for your Facebook. And it's come a long way because you used to have to use a website called Mini Chats or I forgot the other one that I used to use, but Mini Chats, basically they kind of integrated. Facebook kind of took the formula from them. I don't want to say they took it from them, but something similar, but inside of the platform so that you wouldn't have to integrate it. So now it's more intuitive. So you can set up auto replies based on what someone says. They can say one word that's kind of like a trigger into your Facebook, and it's just a response so that you can give yourself time to actually get them an answer, or it can be a commonly asked question like in your FAQs. So go on Facebook, business.facebook.com, and set up your auto replies.
And I would recommend get your calendar set up, get your content calendar for the year. Take a look at what the holidays are. Take a look at when some of the fun, like, I don't know, blueberry muffin day. And if you've got a strain that's going to have blueberry in it, then go for that. But really try to set yourself up with a calendar as much as possible. When things happen within your business, again, you get really busy. Your focus can be in a lot of different directions, but so long as you have a plan, an executable plan, you can really learn to like batch that content, get things set up in advance, and build a system for yourself so you're always ahead of the game and not always feeling like, oh shoot, I missed Father's Day, or or it's 8:00 at night and Father's Day is almost over and I should have probably posted 8:00 this morning. So really being able to set yourself up for success by knowing what's coming and planning in advance what kind of things you'll want to do will free up a lot of that creative space to have some fun with it.
Not that we would ever forget Father's Day. All right. Delara, swinging over to you.
Thanks, Brad. We're going to go to our next slide. We've already been having a fantastic facilitated discussion with our social media experts, content creators extraordinaire, our SMEs. The last question I want to ask, one quick follow-up to Bethany. Earlier, you mentioned restrictions on advertising and how to work around them. I wanted to make sure that we brought that back up in this section so that you could share with us a little bit about how to work around those restrictions. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and say our last question, which is best practices for sustainability and anything else our social equity applicants and licensees in Los Angeles should know, your kind of closing thoughts. So first, we look forward to hearing from Bethany, and then we'll just popcorn it well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. Ishka, you can go after Bethany with your closing comments, and then we'll have Savvy. Bethany.
All right. Well, what comes to mind is that we are still in a state-by-state patchwork system here in the United States. So every state will have a little bit of its own flavor of advertising restrictions in some way, shape, or form. But there are some broad advertising restrictions on these social media platforms that we have been dealing with and pivoting and somersaulting and dealing with for years. For even as a trade association, even advertising an event for business professionals would sometimes get flagged. There's also no direct sales online as well. I mean, I think we all know that. Just to reiterate it, we can't say come in today for 20% off. And that's where those customer opt-in marketing opportunities come in with text messaging. Really getting your customers to give you their cell phone number and opt in to getting those direct sales, because you've already verified they're over 21, they're of age to consume. And that's really what we're looking at here, is making sure we're not advertising to minors and we're not advertising outside of who we're able to sell to in general. You can't, you can't advertise to folks who are coming in from out of state who are going to leave the next day. You can't encourage them to take some home. That's not legal. But of course, you can take advantage of tourists in town as well. So just thinking about understanding the laws around not advertising to minors, making sure you're in line with whatever your state's marketing regulations are, which are often very similar to alcohol and tobacco, kind of by design. So being aware of those restrictions and not crossing the line on social media, knowing that you might make a post if it's too heavy on marijuana artwork or marijuana verbiage, that can often get flagged. And like, that's just going to happen. Unfortunately, I have had better luck on LinkedIn. But again, this is on more of a B2B level than it is to a customer engagement level. Twitter is becoming a very strange land, very strange country out there. Instagram and Facebook, Instagram in particular, is probably the best way to communicate the culture, values, and story of your product without directly selling your product. I'll leave. I think that should kind of cover it, but I do want to say, like, definitely talk to your legal consultant, whoever is doing your legal, talk to a marketing consultant as needed as well, to make sure that you're within the realms of not crossing any advertisement, either regulations or laws, honestly, is what you definitely want to avoid.
All right. Anyone else want to add some parting comments before we stitch this up? All right, then. Well, thank you all for attending this informative webinar offered by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation. A huge thank you to Bethany Moore, Ishka, and Savvy. Thank you for so much for joining us. Dr. Delara Uskup, as always, a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for driving this and organizing. This webinar recording will be found on DCR's Learning Management System for Social Equity Verified Individuals within a few weeks after this presentation. If you have any questions on accessing your account, please email dcr.sep, that's our social equity program, dcr.sep@lacity.org. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.